Atomic Blonde. Berlin. November 1989. MI6 agent James Gascione, Sam Hargrave, is running through the streets as he is being chased by someone in a car. They catch up to him and slam him into another car before pinning Gascione between the two. His attacker, Yuri Baktan, Jóhannesson, steps out of the car. Gascione quips about hoping his killer would be someone else, before Baktan shoots him in the head. Baktan takes the watch off Gascione's wrist and then dumps his body in the river. 10 days later, another agent, Lorraine Broughton, Charlize Theron, emerges from a tub of ice water covered in bruises. She then heads to a debriefing with her superior Eric Gray, Toby Jones, and CIA agent Emmett Kurtzfield. John Goodman. Behind the two-way mirror is MI6 head chief C. James Faulkner, listening in on the conversation. In the time since Gascione's death, both MI6 and the CIA have been trying to track down the list, which contains the information of active Soviet field agents. It is mentioned that Gascione was betrayed by an agent named Konrad Satchel, who sold classified information to the Soviets. We go back to the day after Gascione's murder. It's suggested that he and Lorraine were intimately involved. She is sent to Berlin to get the list and kill Satchel. Lorraine is to meet with her contact, David Percival, James McAvoy. Percival is introduced in a bar where he meets with a Stasi officer, code-named Spyglass. Eddie Marsan, who is set to defect to the West. Spyglass knows information about the list, and Percival wants answers. KGB arms dealer Alexander Bremovich, Roland Møller, is after the list for himself. He confronts a group of street punks brought to him by his henchmen who claim to have seen Spyglass. Bremovich beats one of the punks and orders his men to find Spyglass. Lorraine touches down in Berlin and is escorted by two men to meet with Percival, only for her to quickly realize that the two are KGB agents working for Bremovich, meaning she has been compromised. Lorraine attacks one of the men using her shoe before causing the driver of their car to crash. She then meets Percival, who was driving behind them and witnessed the whole thing. He proceeds to join her in their mission. Unbeknownst to her, Lorraine is being watched by a mysterious woman from a distance. During her stay in Berlin, Lorraine makes contact with the watchmaker, Till Schweiger, an ally of MI6 who also happens to tinker with watches. Lorraine goes to Gascione's apartment where she finds photos of himself with Percival. Soon, police officers enter the building, forcing Lorraine to take him on. She beats them all down with her fists and some cable before using it to swing out a window, while it's wrapped around an officer's neck. Back in the debriefing, Lorraine mentions that she considered that Percival had sent them since he was the only other person that knew she would go to the apartment. Lorraine later goes to a bar where she meets a French operative, Delphine Lassalle, Sofia Boutella, the woman who was following Lorraine earlier. The two start talking before going somewhere private. Delphine kisses Lorraine, but Lorraine has been suspicious of Delphine's intentions. She presses her against the wall and questions why she's been looking for her. When Delphine proves to not be a threat, she and Lorraine begin to hook up. Baktan resurfaces and meets with the watchmaker to try and sell Gascione's watch, which is what contains the list. Baktan tries to approach Percival with the watch in hand, but Percival sticks an ice pick in Baktan's head and takes the list for himself. He inspects the watch himself and sees the names of all the agents. Percival tries to help Lorraine escort Spyglass to West Berlin. To Lorraine's surprise, Spyglass's wife and child have come along. They attempt to obscure Spyglass through the streets as KGB agents are scoping him out. Percival then turns and shoots Spyglass in the gut. Lorraine then takes him into an apartment complex to avoid being spotted. KGB agents then start to attack, forcing Lorraine to fight all of them going down the stairwell. This carries out onto the streets as Lorraine tries to drive away with Spyglass, only to keep being found by agents. Lorraine's car falls into the river, and although she tries to save him, Spyglass perishes. Delphine gets in touch with Percival after learning his true motives. She had been photographing him with Gacchione and is developing the pictures when Percival sneaks into her apartment and tries to strangle her with a garrote. Delphine tries to fight him but she is killed. Lorraine shows up too late and finds Delphine's body. Lorraine later finds Percival after he has burned down his safe house. She shoots him once and determines he was Satchel. Percival declares his love for Berlin before Lorraine puts a bullet in his head. She then takes the list from him. We return to the present as Lorraine finishes the debriefing. She presents Gray and Kurtzfield with the photos of Percival and audio recordings to prove her is a traitor. When asked if she knows where the list is now, Lorraine denies it. Gray then closes the case. 3 days later, Lorraine goes to Paris and meets with Bremovich under the guise of giving him the list. Bremovich knows Lorraine is not who she says she is, and a bunch of his men begin to surround her. Lorraine pulls her gun out of an ice bucket and begins to unload on all the goons before leaving. Bremovich for last. She drops her British accent, revealing she was Satchel all along, having been a triple agent with the CIA. She finally kills Bremovich. The film concludes with Lorraine joining Kurtzfield on a plane back to the States.